Our post-rehab tip for this month actually looks at two tips that are designed to help us with cervical alignment with our post-rehab clients and also firing and strengthening the muscles of the posterior shoulder girdle and also the cervical extensors. What we're going to do here is an activity. The first activity we're going to perform is called Scapula Activation. We're going to first position Janny, and then we're going to ask her to go through the activity itself. So the first thing we ask her to do is position herself properly, and the positioning here is we ask her to bring both arms up so that the fists are just above the shoulders, which means that the shoulder itself is just above 90 degrees. This doesn't work for our clients that have impingement. So this activity just won't work for the impingers. Don't try it because it's just going to make them worse because it's putting them in a situation where they're impinging more. So the fists are just above the shoulders. That's the position. And our first movement is to bring the elbows back as far as she possibly can. So she brings the elbows back and she tries to keep those elbows at least even with the shoulders. So that's movement number one. Movement number two is she squeezes the elbows together, which fires the posterior shoulder girdle. And I'll have her turn around in a second so you can see this a little bit better. And movement number three is she takes these elbows and she stuffs them in her back pockets. Okay? That now gets all these posterior shoulder girdle muscles to fire along with the cervical extensors, and then she relaxes. We ask her to do that 3 times for us. So she's done it once. We're going to ask her to do it 2 more times. So she brings the arm up, brings the elbows back, squeezes the elbows together, stuffs the elbows in her back pocket. Okay? That's scapular activation. Now let's have Jan do it, and we're going to ask her to turn around so you can see it from behind. So the first thing she does, she brings the arms up. The fists are above 90. She doesn't have to be quite so high, just slightly above 90 or slightly above the shoulder. She brings the elbows back. Notice the elbows are at least even with her shoulders. They're not way down here. Then she squeezes the elbows together. Now we get the posterior shoulder girdle musculature firing, particularly the rhomboids. And then she takes these elbows and stuffs them in her back pockets. What that does now is it fires even the lower portions of the traps, and everything is firing here, which means we can bring the cervical spine back a little bit, and everything is working here to pull the shoulder girdle back, and also the cervical extensors are working. And relax for me. Now we ask our client, you can turn around here for me. We ask our client to perform that activity 3 times every hour, and that activity is called Scapular Activation. The second activity we're going to use with our cervical clients is cervical alignment, and this is a very simple activity we use to align the cervical spine. So whether the client is 4'9" or 6'9", this works for everyone, every time, in every situation. What we're going to ask Jan to do is put her hands at her sides. So her hands are right at her sides. We're going to ask her to bring her arms out from her sides so that her hands are just even with the shoulders. Now we're going to ask her to let her elbows bend and put the backs of her hands on her shoulders. So her elbows drop. She puts the backs of her hands on her shoulders. And now we ask her to simply drop her arms and just relax. What happens here is the shoulder girdle rolls up and back, and then it puts her in a proper position. And when she drops her arms, her ear ends up right over her shoulder. So she's in the proper position every time. So let's show the activity again. Just relax for me there for a second. She puts her hands at her sides. Okay. She brings her arms out to the side. She now lets her elbows bend and drops the backs of the hands on the shoulders. And then she just simply lets her hands drop. That brings her ear over her shoulder, and now you can see she has a proper cervical alignment, no problems at all. One of the problems that we commonly see with clients is we ask them to move into this rigid marine type position, and they stay here for a couple of seconds, and then they're right back here. Whereas this position and this activity is much easier to maintain, and it works for everyone, and regardless of their height, arm length, cervical positioning, it aligns them every time. And you can see here that earlobe is right over the shoulder. Again, this is cervical alignment. We ask our client to perform the scapular activation 3 times every hour, and after they perform those 3 repetitions, then we ask them to perform cervical alignment. This can be done in the car, this can be done at a table, this can be done standing, it can be done any place. So for those clients that work at desk or have desk jobs where the chin gets out here, we just simply ask them to reposition by using cervical alignment.